1992. And I was to London school because I was reading a lot Sonia Livingstone, and I wasn't be able to talk to her because I feel so embarrassed. So for me, it's a reference 30 years ago. So. Yes, Cristina Ponte, who is working too with also with Sonia Livingstone, is a very known also colleague in a very important part of the researching in children. She is head of also has been head of department and a lot of things. You know also Cristina Ponte, and she is from Nova University in Portugal, and also she's working with in Latin American countries in Brazil also. So thank you, Cristina, for being here. They're always in this congress, so I am so grateful for you. We are going to talk about Victoria Tour because we are in a hurry. So Victoria Tour is a colleague of mine. We are working together in a lot of projects together about kids. She is from the Department of Communication and Social Psychology, author of different books and articles and research projects about children and marketing, also about rights and opportunities, and a lot of projects about that. And she is now the Vice President of the Association of Kids and Home. This is the thing that she's going to talk about. For the research on children and communication area. She has also a lot of prizes like Sonia and Cristina about communication and children. And the last speaker is Juan Moza. He is a lawyer, and he's here because he represents the NGO Asociación Aprende, Mirar, to learn how to work about children. I think that your point is now neuropsychology, clinic neuropsychology, and he is a specialist in video games addictions.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Well, let me introduce you the Association to Research about Kids, Young and Communication. This is a project that I promoted back in 2008 as an initiative where scientists and researchers focus on kids, young and communication to work in medical. Currently, the group has a board of directors integrated by 70 members from 15 different universities. The president is Carmen García Galera from University de Juan Carlos of Madrid. There are now more than 15 research groups all around Spain and barely 200 researchers specialized in this subject. The association is open to academic environment but also accepts professional and civil members with interest in kids, young and communication. We welcome everybody with serious interest, focus on research, the relationship between kids and media. As a consequence, the perspective of all studies are multidisciplinary and full of variety such as media literacy, education, communication, psychology, sociology, governance, regulation, journalism, with media and kids as audience and many others. The association goals are as follows. The first one, investigate changes and transformation in communication practices since new technologies and new media are here. The second one, to share scientific light based on solid and reliable data to promote scientific transfer that could be useful to the market and the society. The third one, to facilitate governments and administrators all necessary data to make decisions, to analyze and investigate all trends and new media generated or consumed by kids and young people, and finally to promote changes and improvements in media where kids and young are relevant and stimulate political movements. The digital weak points that place kids at trips have been a serious concern for our association. The lack of observance of auto-regulation system, the absence of quality contents addressed to kids, the cyberbullying and the lack of knowledge of parents and tutors of new technologies have been some of the relevant areas where investigators have put the focus. The association considers essential the education and the digital alphabetization. It is our goal to find solutions and make proposals so that kids can learn to use media, parents can really teach and have a positive influence in their kids, and the companies will use new media and communication in a responsible way. These are the topics where our association can really make a difference. The responsibility of companies offering products to kids and the mass media when offering kids content including mobile phones, companies, TV programs, video game designer or new digital creators reveal misfunctionalities that are a good opportunity to investigate. The effective kids protection is a responsibility that affects everybody, not just parents. To incentivize the kids' capacity and criticism is probably the best tool we have and concentrates all our efforts inside the organization. We have 15 groups working in our network, cooperating and collaborating in different projects, scientific events, and all kinds of research. These are the existing groups in the day. First one is called Animados from the Universidad de Juan Carlos of Madrid, focus on analysis and media applications. Oh, sorry, it's not this one. It's this one. The next one is Aura from the University of Huelva in Andalusia, and is focused on investigation in communication and education. The one is the Mind from the University of Alicante. We are investigating the quality of audiovisual content. The next one is from the University of Murcia, focus on Comunicación y Menores, communication and minors. The next one is Comunicar, probably the most popular, from the University of Huelva, and focus in the edu communication. Conicom from Blanquerna, Barcelona, concentrating on social conflict, media treatment, and social perception of violence. UKids Online from the University of País Vasco. Gabinete de Comunicación y Educación from the University Autónoma de Barcelona, focus on communication and education too. Generaciones interactivas from the University of Navarra, focus on kids consumption and screens. Hickelson from the University Rey Juan Carlos de Madrid, about communication, culture and society. They have a permanent observation center for TV content. The Observatorio Comunicación y Sociedad from Centro Villanueva de Madrid. SOC Media from the University Complutense of Madrid, Behavior and Kids Competence in New Technologies and Communication. In Salamanca, a ver, no se me ha pasado. Salamanca, Observatorio de los Contenidos Audiovisuales, OCA, focus on content, use, process and effects of media communication, and Procoteam, that incorporates different universities and focus on television on kids. It's a project of several research groups are participating? Well, all of them share the same challenge, the internationalization of the research through collaboration with European research groups. I highly hope that this event helps to reach this target, and nothing more. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay. Thank you so much.
First of all, I'm here in place of Domingo Malmierca, the main director of the Fundación, Learn to Fundación Aprende. So I'm going to talk to you about what this foundation has been doing for 35 years, because we started with when television was starting to be a problem inside family and kids behavior. So let me tell you a little story. I knew a parent, one of our researchers at schools. He told me this story. Once he was at the living room, and his little girl wrote it. Hey Dad, I was going through YouTube, and I think I might have landed in something I must not see. The dad said, okay, tell me what it is. No, I think you should go and watch it yourself. So we think kids know what is happening, and they try to behave properly, but they can't do it by themselves. Normally, they don't usually ask for advice about the content of TV series or video game. When they do, they actually asking for advice. They just don't know how. We used to think, let's turn the lemon into lemonade and try to use violence in video games to talk about violence, and use what is happening in their behavior to approach what is happening in their brains, because they are the brain. We all are our brain. That is our scientific approach. We know nowadays we live in a new dimension of human life. It's called digital life, and we know that 40–50% maybe of the characters and behaviors not it's not set by genetics. So what is set from? We're not sure, but we're pretty sure it's died, this died, and by everything our children see and do on screens. We always want the best for our children, but especially because we know that the environment and digital content greatly influence them. And here's the first paradox of this. We always say technology makes us more free, but for some reason kids are doing year by year the same at the same time. It doesn't look like they're more free. Humans are born with great helplessness in the brain. Plasticity tells us about potential, but not about what we are. We know that we must take care of that digital life. Digital life brings us new languages, avoids efforts, above all, makes us happy, seems to make us very happy. Our brain becomes full of happiness, and one needs to be, brain wants that happiness to be maintained and repeated. That's not quite healthy in itself, we know. So, why don't talk, and that's what we do, why don't we talk and speak to kids about what's happening in their brain at video games? They must know what is dopamine, cortisol, endorphins, insulin hypertrophy. They must be aware how they themselves behave. We want and we should know what they see and what they hear. This is the third paradox. Technology seems to be great for learning at schools, but for some reason we're finding kids less and less capable to read a book. And that's happening in the brain too. How do we teach them to look? how do they learn to look, or how do they choose what they choose to look? To train them, we think we must put through digital literacy at their fingertips, so they have much better and more informed critical judgments. That's the key in the legal debate, in the social debate, family debate, and ultimately in the search of happiness. And happiness is in the brain. This is a new paradox. We always say they know better, but we are the ones educating them. They're not going to educate themselves. Well, everything I told till now is more or less the content we teach to students, parents, and in all the schools we've been going, and we've been collecting data. More or less, in the last 5 years, we have 500, more or less, yes, like 500 surveys from 200 schools, and more or less 2,000 kids studied on the habits in the internet and social media. So, what do we want to do with that data? Because the scientific approach means that data must be useful to know why it's happening, what is happening. And that, I'd say, is great. So our approach nowadays is keep searching that information, because schools trust us since 35 years. Schools are letting us in and asking the children and teachers for what is happening. We must study if the behavior of the kids is really different than ours with tech. And we think it's not different. Our experience is not different. We behave mostly the same with a video game. Adults also get addicted to video games. We just have no things to do. Their life is smaller. They have less things to do, but they only go to school and play. So, one of the things we're promoting from we've been promoting since 35 years when we started, is that in family everything can be spoken and contrast and commented and shared. We must listen to what they told us. And that information from the scholars is unbelievable. That's priceless. 35 years of science. Perhaps we think they're very different, but we insist they're not. They're not different than us. They don't learn differently. Technology makes them behave differently. We must take much more into account what they see, what's their opinion, where that opinion comes from, if they're really learning more, and that's, I insist, happening in their brains. Don't let technology educate our kids. We must do it. And for that, we have to approach what's the best way to approach a kid as a brain also, not only as a brain. What is good for the brain? And that's the kind of things we try to search and try to know. So that's what we think will help all of us to bring a real digital illustration nowadays, by giving the true digital literacy and quality in content. And that's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you. I prepared 2 short notes because time is always short. And I would like to start following your presentation about the situation in Spain. I come from Portugal. Portugal is very small, so it's very different from Spain. We have a small community of researchers which allow us to know each other relatively well. I don't know if some of you know Sara from Universidade Domingo.
and I'm from Universidade de Nova de Lisboa, and we two are, let's say, the main mothers of this area of studies, like also with Manuel Pinto. And we discussed and talked some months ago, and we discussed about our need of having time to discuss these things without pressures of presenting 10 minutes in a conference or in a PhD panel where we have to present our arguments, but there is no time to discussion. So we decided to promote a workshop that would involve the community of scholars, young scholars, PhD students, and people that have been working in this area from different backgrounds, but we recognize them as colleagues, as peers. And because Daphne will be there next week, we decided to organize a full collaborative workshop next Monday. Thank you, Daphne. So what did you do? We sent invitations to everybody saying we have an opportunity of a full-day workshop for discussing our issues, and 20 people accepted. Not bad. We sent around 30, so not bad. And each one sent us a short bio where they present their interests. And based on these short bios that were sent to Daphne, we identified 3 main areas of research: children's cultures and production, like YouTubers, education, skills and literacies, like news literacies, transmedia literacy, the role of schools. Yoli is part of this second group, and children and their families. Teresa is also a member of this group. So with these 3 topics, we decided that each participant in the morning session of the workshop, we have a short presentation of 5 minutes, but after this round of short presentations, we will have time to discuss what emerged from these topics, from each one of these topics. This is the program for 3 hours in the morning, and in the afternoon we open a different way of working in small groups. We want people to have time to discuss in order to identify the gaps of our research. What has not been researched so far in Portugal and deserves our attention? And more, how could we design the research considering our possible partners and possible stakeholders that are interested in our research? To whom, let's say, is a different way of saying the same, to whom is research matters? Which entities should be involved in research design? And this is something that I've learned with the work that I've been following of the Global Kids Online. And also, how can we share and identify the sources that provide information about the Portuguese context, from sociology, from statistics, about media landscape, the socio-economic and cultural dimensions of the country. And after that, we have a plenary discussion with the contributions of the different groups. Of course, we are a small community, but I think this is a great opportunity for having time to discuss and to work together, because something that I felt we as academics have a kind of not stigma, but a kind of brand, a kind of sign is we are to focus on our own research, on working for publications, and we forget how to identify how can we bring, how can we work together, and don't be always inventing the wheel. Sometimes we identify that are other people doing the same that we are. So this is our experience that I would like to share with you. And my second part, I will be very brief, because Sonia will talk also about this. I would share with you my experience with the Latin American colleagues. I've been working with the Brazilian colleagues since 2000, and in this process I met very interesting people that were working to UNDI, the National Agency for Children's Rights. And with these contacts, my name is Ponte. I don't know, in English it's bridge. So I made the bridge between Brazil and Sonia and the Kids Online Network in 2011 when Alexandre Barbosa and Pierre Canella went to the final conference of the Kids Online and expressed their will of also having a similar research study in Brazil. In Brazil there is a center its name is CETIC, that produces ICT research on Brazilian society since 2005. Each year they updated the studies. It is something that is not usual. I would love to have a CETIC in Portugal, and I'm sure that you also would love to have a CETIC center in other countries. They followed the household since 2005, so they have historical data about how is the ICT in households, and so they would also to have Kids Online, TIC Kids Online Brazil. And they are very professional, so they started preparing this survey for 2012, and we act as consultants, and we worked with them in preparing the survey, and also Rosalia was there, and the first results generated lots of interesting data. We always learned when we do these kind of things. We think that we control the process, the quality of the process, but when we saw the results that Brazilian children gave, do you access the internet on your own bedroom? Lots of children in Brazil don't have an own bedroom. And when more than one third say they access the internet in another place, not at home, we realize the relevance of cybercafes and LAN house. These kind of things, it's amazing how we cannot, as academics, we cannot anticipate these kind of things in spite of all our, we think we are attentive, but still we get the surprises. Another very interesting data is the rate of children that in 2012 had profiles in social networking sites. Below the age of 13, so under the law, let's say, under what is allowed, more than half of children from 9 to 10 years old have already a social profile, mostly in a public way, while in Europe this value was quite low. I think it's 1/3. I remember it was 1/3. So with this we learned a lot about the different conditions and paths for accessing the internet in the global north and in the global south, and Sonia will told us more about this. On the other hand, this work has been very interesting. So each year, TIC Kids Online Brazil presents new results. They change some questions, but they keep a continuity, and slowly these results became appropriated by the academics, by Brazilian academics. It was not usual to see quantitative data in the research done by Brazilian academics, because they have a reivindication of being qualitative, but having access to this data provide a very useful backgrounds for exploring qualitative. So, Rosália has explored this in Rio de Janeiro, Inês Sampaio in Fortaleza, and others. And I think it's a slow path. Sometimes I go to Brazil and I say, do you know CYM-ECREA-Salamanca 1? And they go, no, I have no commission, but you should look at what this data show. So, because of this work in Brazil, other countries in Latin America expressed their will of also doing the same kind of studies. Chile, Uruguay, now other countries, Peru, Costa Rica, and there is a Latin American network of countries. They will publish a report very soon. Some countries received the support of UNESCO and Ministry of Education. To finish, I would say that this kind of contact between Latin American research and European researchers has been very, very useful for us. I remember that we had a discussion when we were discussing the new framework of the Kids Online, and a Chilean colleague says, you are not paying enough attention to the community level. And you are just focused on the child, the family, peers, and school, and what about community? And this is something that was recalled, stressed by someone from a very different context. So I would like to say that this collaboration has been very, very interesting, and also with the Global Kids Online, but this is the room for Sonia.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you very much for asking me to speak here, and to everything that Cristina has just said, because I want to give the picture for Global Kids Online on how EU Kids Online and Latin American Kids Online is fitting into a global network of researchers and also policymakers who are trying to produce evidence-based policy to improve the online lives and indeed the lives of children around the world. So Global Kids Online is a collaboration with EU Kids Online and also with UNICEF. And the power of working with UNICEF is that they have the country offices in many parts of the world who can take the findings that the researchers generate and work in the countries, and they also, it's a dialogue. In every country we have a different dialogue, but we have a dialogue whereby we learn something about the country through the UNICEF country office. We revise the research, we think again, as it were, at the centre, and then we try to design research which is comparable in the different countries. So this is the countries where we work at the moment, and as you can see, Latin America is our most kind of populated area apart from Europe. Europe is coordinated by the EU Kids Online Network, but Latin America, all credit goes to Cristina, who has been a completely brilliant bridge in really making this, well, we're both bridge builders, so it's fine. But with the network is spreading, and we're now working in further countries, and also this November, I hope in time for the 30th anniversary of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, we will have a report based on the data from 11 countries. So I can't tell you so much about the findings, but I just want to give you a couple of findings to make a few points. Right, computer. So we spend a lot of time discussing how to measure access to the internet in different countries. I've arranged the countries here in order of GDP, because I think in access it tells a story about resources, and here what it tells you is that Italy, which is the richest country included here, also has the best access, but along with Chile, and that Uruguay is somewhere behind where you might have expected it to be. But you'll see that European and Latin American countries dominate so far the data that we have. And even though we have different patterns in each country as we look, we also see some commonalities and gender differences. I hear for Daphne, who will want to press further on them. But actually we see gender differences in access pretty much everywhere, irrespective of GDP, so it's not something that is easily solved by, well, regrettably. So another way of presenting the findings is a little more sketchy. It's hard to present findings from very many countries in great detail. In every country, we ask ourselves, what do children do when they get online? What do we hope they might do when they get online? And in each country, in a somewhat different way, we see also a common ladder, as we've called it. So we think of it as the ladder of online participation because it parallels the ladder that is used in the world of children's rights, to think about children becoming or gaining the opportunities through their environment to be the rights holders and agents that they have the right to be. And the ladder is interesting because in different ways, but also with commonalities, we see generally when children begin to get online, when they're younger, they do more that is search, videos, games, music, messaging. And as they get more advanced, as they gain more skills, and among those who are more privileged in their homes, they also progress, if you like, further up the ladder. And I use this ladder really to invite policymakers and practitioners to ask, what do we want at the top? What do we hope children will be doing? And is it okay that many children are doing search, video and gaming? Maybe that's great. But only a few are being politically active or looking for help, information, or creating their own content. And even for the thought for the educationalists and perhaps the psychologists in the room, do we need to come in at this ground level? What are the children learning when they game? For example, we had a critical story of gaming, but we were also exploring a positive story. Perhaps through these entry-level activities, children get the chance to progress further up the ladder. It's a thought to conjure with. I have to say that much of each, in Global Kids Online, every country funds its own participation. And it's generally the case that the funding comes from a concern about risks and protection. So we also ask lots of questions about risk and protection. And it's really hard. I've tried in one way here to present a lot of findings in the different countries. People tend to read the graphs from the perspective of their country if it's there, and they want their country present if it is, so they can kind of see, are we doing well, are we doing badly, what do we need to prioritise? These are hard questions to ask children from the age of 9 to 17 in a survey format. We spend a lot of time in the network talking about ethics and reliable survey administration and ways of getting as valid as findings as we can. But just to say something about the happening in Europe and Latin America. We try very hard in Global Kids Online and in eKids Online to make the argument that risk is not the same as harm. Children might encounter all kinds of risks, and we should be paying attention to this, but it doesn't necessarily harm. Okay, we don't have a great way of measuring harm. We ask the children, has something bothered or upset you online in the last year? And if we compare the children who say they have seen all those risks I just showed you, and those who say something upset me last year, we see an interesting pattern where the European countries are lower. They vary in risks, but they are lower in harm. And the Latin American countries and the Global South countries we have so far are a bit higher. In other words, they're similar in risk to Europe, but the children report being upset more often. This, I think, raises the question, are those children more vulnerable in some ways? What is it about their circumstances? What is it about their online experience? What is it about the regulation in those countries? It could be many things. But it's data to provoke the policymakers to think, what should we now be doing? I'll show you one more of these. So we also pay a lot of attention to the responsibility of parents, and we think about parents in terms of parents who do restrictive mediation of their children's activities and parents who do enabling. Of course, most do some mixture of both. But again, you see a kind of a cultural pattern emerging. So Ghana, Philippines and South Africa are the poorest countries we have in the study so far, and the parents are much more likely to be restrictive in responding to their children. And Latin America and Europe, I could not really make a pattern, though Uruguay and Chile, the parents report doing most of everything. So maybe they're the best parents, I don't know. Then we try in our modelling later to make patterns between the internet access in the countries, the regulation in the country, and the actions, the skills of the children, and the mediation of the parents. And that's another story for another time. But I just want to give you a little snapshot. Are you waving at me yet, Patricia? 1 minute? Yes. On some of the impacts, because the latest thing we've done is to commission an independent company, an independent organisation, to go around the countries and ask them, what have you done with these findings? And I'll just click through a few, if you can read these maybe. Can you read them at the back? Catherine, not really? Again, it's a real snapshot from a very long, detailed report to say, in Brazil, the findings were cited in the National Broadband Plan in Argentina, they've used the findings to promote digital literacy. In Uruguay, they've used them to have a public awareness campaign. In Ghana, they've incorporated the findings to guide the revision of the Children's Act. In Montenegro, they've built a learning app with the Department of Education. In Bulgaria, more use of digital literacy training. In South Africa, they took the opportunity to try to reduce data costs for the poor children using our findings on access. And in the Philippines, also they are working on digital skills with children. So we have more different kinds of findings and a long story behind, but we really wanted to see if the findings are being used in some ways. And we have almost no control over how they're used and what they do with them, but we're glad that something is happening. And please visit our website, and thank you for your attention.